I'm going to read you some selections from a book this afternoon, and I'm going to ask you to guess who wrote the book. The really decisive question is this: to whom should propaganda be addressed? To the scientifically trained intelligentsia or to the less educated masses? Answer: it must always be addressed exclusively to the masses. The function of propaganda does not lie in the scientific training of the individual, but in calling the masses' attention to certain facts, processes, necessities, etc., whose significance is for the first time placed within their field of vision. The whole art consists in doing this so skillfully that everyone will be convinced that the fact is real, the process is necessary, and the necessity is correct. But since propaganda is not and cannot be the necessity itself, since its function, like a poster, consists in attracting the attention of the crowd and not in educating those who are already educated or striving after education or knowledge. The purpose is not knowledge. Its effect, for the most part, must be aimed at the emotions and only to a very limited degree to the so-called intellect. And depending upon what you're trying to accomplish, that makes a certain amount of sense. All propaganda must be popular, and its intellectual level must be adjusted to the most limited intelligence among those being addressed. Consequently, the greater the mass it is intended to reach, the lower its purely intellectual level will have to be. Right? In other words, the more people out there we're trying to reach with this thing, the lower the intellectual level we've got to aim at in the process. Now, departing from the book for a moment, what this means in the simplest terms is that propaganda is not concerned with intelligent argument. It's concerned with calling attention to the cause and arousing emotions relative to the cause, whatever that cause might be. Oddly, television is singularly well suited to propaganda. This is not the book, this is me talking now. It has given us the term soundbite, the term talking points. The idea is to have a quick, short statement that appeals to the emotions and then repeat it over and over and over again. Now that ought to be beginning to be familiar to all of you by now. As you've watched political campaigns for many years, as you've watched what's been saying in the continuing crisis that's going on right now, which they say is a crisis of the regime, not a constitutional crisis. And as we watch what's happening, we can see how that's happening. That what people are given talking points, and they go out, they spread out to all the television programs, all the talking heads do. And if you listen carefully, you can actually extract the talking points from what you are hearing on television. It will be repeated again and again. There will be catchy little phrases. There will be little expressions. And as you listen, you'll hear it, and then you'll hear it a second time. And by the time you've heard it the second time, if you write it down and start listening, you will probably hear it another dozen times before it finally passes out of use and is replaced by something else that's designed to say precisely the same thing, to appeal not to the intellect, but to the emotions, and to continually pound away and drive a theme home in the masses of the people that are out there. Now, going back to the book, the more modest its intellectual ballast, the more exclusively it takes into consideration the emotions of the masses, the more effective it will be. In other words, the less intellectual content and the more emotional content, the more effective it will be. And this is the best proof of the soundness or unsoundness of a propaganda campaign, not success in pleasing a few scholars or young aesthetes. The art of propaganda lies in understanding the emotional ideas of the great masses and finding through a psychologically correct form the way to the attention and thence to the heart of the broad masses. Once we understand how necessary it is for propaganda to be adjusted to the broad mass, the following rule results. Okay, once you got this idea in mind, forget the appeal to the intellect. Don't bother trying to educate people. You appeal to their emotions. Here's the rule. The receptivity of the great masses is very limited, and their intelligence is small. There you are. You are a part of the great masses. Their power of forgetting is enormous. Now, I think you'll have to agree that that's true. You know, you'd look at us as a great mass of people. Our power to forget stuff is unlimited, it seems. In consequence of these facts, all effective propaganda must be limited to a very few points, and it must harp on these in slogans until the last member of the public understands what you want him to understand by your slogans. Simple, clean, neat, and you harp on it and harp on it and harp on it until finally the public out there has got it in their psyche to where it can even become the punchline of a joke. You know precisely what the next line is if you've heard what goes before it, because it has become so familiar to you in listening to it. As soon as you sacrifice this slogan and try to be many-sided, the effect will piddle away, for the crowd can neither digest nor retain the material offered. In this way, the result is weakened and, in the end, entirely canceled out. Sound bites and talking points. You get them out there and you repeat them again and again and again. And it becomes obvious in reading this that it is the end that counts. It is what you're driving at that counts. It means that the author has no intention of appealing to reason or truth or the intellect or of giving the other side any benefit of any doubt. Continuing with the quotation. What authorities least of all understand is the very first axiom of all propagandist activity, to wit, the basically subjective and one-sided attitude it must take toward every question it deals with. Objectivity is the enemy. It must be subjective, and it must be absolutely, totally one-sided. Fascinating. You see, two kinds of people on television out there in the political culture. I don't know how many of you are able to catch some of the cable programs that are coming over MSNBC, the Fox News Channel, and over CNBC, as they bring on lawyer after lawyer after lawyer, news reporter, news analyst, pundit after another, and they all talk and talk and talk endlessly about the crises and the political issues and all the stuff that's going on around us here. In these people, you see two kinds of people. Those who are trying to be objective, and those who are and reasonable about these things, and persuasive and educating people on what the facts are, and those who take a totally one-sided view of whatever is going on out there, and who have the propagandist view of the challenge at hand. Can you spot the difference between them? As you watch television, as you listen to these people, are you able to say, okay, this fellow here is trying to be objective about this. This fellow over here is just trying, he has his series of phrases, he has his series of short little ideas, his appeal is to the emotions. You can see the difference, right? You are also aware, aren't you, that in the end, the guy, the second one I mentioned, the one who is appealing to the emotions, will roll right over the other one. And if you can't get him any other way, he will shut him down. This stuff has really been around for quite a long time, and there's nothing new about it. You're getting a chance to get yourself an education, night after night after night, in how this type of thing works in a society and a civilization like ours. The author continues. What, for example, would we say about a poster that was supposed to advertise a new soap and that described other soaps as good? Well, we would shake our heads. Exactly the same thing applies to political advertising. The function of propaganda is not to weigh and ponder the rights of different people, but to effectively emphasize the one right that it has set out to argue for. Its task is not to make an objective study of the truth insofar as it favors the enemy and then set it before the masses with academic fairness. Its task is to serve our own right, always and unflinchingly. We have, this point of view says, I have no obligation to be objective. I have no obligation to give you both sides of the story. I have no obligation to give so much as a silly millimeter to the opposition on this question. I will hammer this question to get my point of view and my point of view only across. And right now, you are sitting right in the middle of one of the greatest laboratories that has ever existed for the study of propaganda, and I really hope that you're paying attention. It's as clear as crystal who is objective and who is serving his own right quote, always and unflinchingly. And there are numerous examples of both appearing on television every day. Now, would you like to know what these people think about you? These propagandists. Quote, the broad mass of a nation does not consist of diplomats or even professors of political law or even individuals capable of forming a rational opinion. It consists of plain mortals wavering and inclined to doubt and to uncertainty. As soon as our own propaganda admits so much as a glimmer of right on the other side, the foundation for doubt in our own side has been laid. We can't allow that to take place. The masses, then, are in no position to distinguish where the other side's injustice ends and our own begins. Curious sentence in a way. Continuing. But the most brilliant propagandist technique will yield no success unless one fundamental principle is borne in mind constantly and with unflagging attention. It must confine itself to a few points and then repeat them over and over again. Here, as is so often in this world, persistence is the first and most important requirement for success. You've got to get after it. You've got to stay after it. Continuing the quote, the purpose of propaganda is not to provide interesting distraction for blasé young gentlemen, but to convince. And what I mean is to convince the masses. But the masses are slow-moving, and they always require a certain time before they are ready to even notice a thing. And only after the simplest ideas are repeated thousands of times will the masses finally remember them. Only after the simplest ideas are repeated thousands of times will the masses finally remember them. And notice he doesn't say believe. He says remember. Because he feels that we are so forgetful that only what we remember will be what counts in the end. The broadness of outline from which we must never depart, in combination with steady, consistent emphasis, allows our final success to mature. And then, this is interesting, then to our amazement we shall see what tremendous results such perseverance leads to results that are almost beyond our understanding. And that's fascinating. If you want to see results of something just precisely like this, just look at the polls that are appearing every day in every medium in this country. If you really want to see how it actually works out. 2/3 of the people of this country believe that the President of the United States is a liar, a cad, and a perjurer. And 2/3 think he should finish out his term. Now, most people who look at the poll results in this country are amazed. And as this propaganda said, if we will just persist, the results will be almost beyond our own understanding. It will amaze us. And that, my folks, is precisely where we've come. How many of you think you know who the author is? Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler. And the book is Mein Kampf. Now that's a sobering thing to consider, that someone would have sat down and studied it out. And of course, he wrote this, by the way, after the First World War. And I changed a few tenses of verbs in here and left a couple things out so that I would not reveal, who it was and where it was so much. But it was a period of time after the First World War, and he was pointing to the failure of the German propaganda machine in World War I as compared to what he considered the British and American propaganda machines in World War I, and blamed a great deal of their failure at the end of that war on those propaganda machines. Their own people lost, they lost hope. They began to doubt their governments, and finally he thought they lost the war because of that. I thought that was absolutely fascinating. Now, what do you suppose public opinion polls would have said of Adolf Hitler? Let's say right up to the time when he made his biggest mistake and invaded Russia. What do you think they would have said? 80%, I bet you, would say, oh, he's doing a good job of running the country. In fact, I think in Germany it would probably be closer to 90%. Oh, he's doing a good job of running the country. And by that time, a lot of things were going on that people would have had reason to know the man wasn't being honest with them. The reason to believe, a person who was an intellectual, a person who was thoughtful, a person who was paying attention, who was not just one of the masses out there, a person who was paying attention would have known that all was not right. Kristallnacht had taken place before this period of time. Jews were disappearing before this time. A lot of stories were being told before this time. A lot of lies were being told by the government prior to this time. But up until the time that he finally began to fail, his approval ratings would have run, I'm sure, over 90%. They would have said, well, maybe he doesn't tell the truth, but he has the economy in good shape and the trains are running on time. And you have to realize Germany had come out of a period of economic chaos, and Hitler had brought them stability, and Hitler had put order back in society. If you suggested to them that maybe Hitler should resign because of some of the things he was doing, their reply would have been, don't be silly. There's no reason on the earth why he should consider resigning. Hitler came to power in Germany in a democratic election. Everybody knows that, don't you? He came to power in a democratic election. The people of Germany voted for him. In the years that followed, his propaganda machine was staggering in its effectiveness. Now, let me make one thing perfectly clear. I don't want anybody to misunderstand me on this. I am not comparing any person in our government today to Hitler. Certainly not Clinton, certainly not Congress, nobody in that situation. I am not a Republican, and I am not a Democrat. I've had occasion on a couple of occasions during the last 3 years when I have given a very strong sermon out of prophecy about the direction of our government that people have written to me accusing me of being a Republican. Let me assure you, I am absolutely not a Republican. I believe Christians should vote, but I am not at all sure we should be members of any political party, Democrat, Republican, Peroists, or whatever else there is around to be a member of. What I am suggesting is that if you thought propaganda died with Hitler, you are a naive dreamer. There are people meeting every day in back rooms around this country, be it Smith County, be it Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, or wherever it is. They're meeting all over the country and talking about how to use techniques just like this to manipulate your opinion. So that when someone calls you up on the phone and asks you certain questions about how the country is being run and what are your opinions about this or that, you will give the answer that they are looking for. And they think about it all the time. They have meetings about it. They train people in it. They actually give talking points, like if they're written down, they can study them. I've actually seen one guy on television being interviewed reading his talking points off of a piece of paper and his answers because he couldn't remember them. And that's all designed to get the sound bites, the quick remarks, not argument, not reasoning. We're not interested in that. There's no interest in sitting down and discussing rationally the ways in which we might go about saving Social Security, which is silly on the surface. Social Security is in no danger whatsoever. Congress will never let Social Security go down in this country. You can forget about that. They will do whatever they have to do to meet that obligation. But there are people sitting around who find short sound bites that are very useful. They can talk about, it gets to where they can throw phrases out there, and the people who are listening to them can fill in what goes around. They only have to say, well, we're concerned about saving Social Security. And that little expression, saving Social Security, I want to work on saving Social Security. Well, that's good. He must be a good person. I want to work on having better health care for the American people. Well, that's marvelous. Is he going to pay for it out of his own pocket? No, it's just a phrase. It's just a comment. It's designed to appeal to your insecurities, to your fears, or whatever else there may be going on. And, of course, then the Republican side of it, they want to tell you all about the wonderful tax cuts that lie ahead for you. And they will get it down. We believe in a tax cut for the middle class and all the kinds of... Both sides, everybody, all political parties are doing this all the time. And you and I sit out here like a pack of fools just with our eyes right around and watch it all and soak it all up. And they call us up on the phone and say, well, how do you think the president's doing in running the country? Say, oh, well, country's doing just fine. I guess I'd say, yeah, he's doing a good job. That's the way it works. It's really staggering. They put together simple ideas, create slogans, and pass them out, and pound them at you from every possible angle. This is why the character of the political leadership of a country is so critical. These people have enormous power for good or for evil, And they can manipulate public opinion in spite of everything we do. And if you ever wanted to see something, aren't you aware of the fact that the media has turned on Clinton months ago? And they have been working hard for many months, I think even before Monica Gate came up, that they have been working to try to convince the people of this country that President Clinton is a liar. In fact, a lot of the media knew it in 1992. Chris Matthews, who has the program Hardball on MSNBC, walked into a bar in Little Rock one night in 1992 in the campaign when Clinton was trying to get elected and sat down and asked a bunch of reporters what they thought of Bill Clinton. And they said he's a shocking liar. But Matthews said he voted for him, and a lot of them voted for him, and a lot of them gave him a free pass because they liked his programs. And I really honestly believe that in the last year, a lot of them have awakened to the fact that there's a danger in having a man as a liar, as the president of the most powerful nation on the face of the earth, and they turned on him somewhere in the last months, and it was before Monica Lewinsky came on the radar scope. And since that time, they have been working like a bunch of beavers, and they have not been able to make a dent in his approval ratings. Now, that ought to frighten you. It ought to frighten you to realize how much power resides inside the Beltway, as they say in Washington, D.C., how much power is in the White House and the White House staff and their ability to control the news cycle and to actually influence what goes on with the news without even any kind of a conspiracy between them and the reporters. They don't have to have one, folks. They have the power. They have a man assigned to the president. No, every news organization does. No matter where he is or no matter what he's doing. They call it the body watch. The whole idea is if lightning strikes him on a golf course, they want somebody there to see it and take a picture of it. Whatever it is, somebody is watching him almost all the time. Almost all the time. So, this is why it is so critical. The media have been hammering away at him. They have not been able really to make a dent in the man and his approval ratings. As I said, that ought to scare us just a little bit. It's been said that those who cannot learn the lessons of history are condemned to repeat them, and I'm not here today merely to give you a lesson in politics. I told you all of that to tell you that we have developed in our political system in this country a culture of lies. It's a culture of lies, and the question of rational discussion of right and wrong is no longer what's important. The question of the economics and the numbers and whether the numbers all add up and we can work it out and get a plan together. You know, the Japanese would have approached this problem with a 50 or 100-year plan to actually set up the Social Security system and make it work like it should way on out in the future. Our political system allows them to work 2 or 4 years out in advance. And you can't solve problems like this that way. We've picked up, what is it now, a $4 trillion debt in this country. And instead of us saying, well, we got a surplus, thinking, well, that just will reduce our debt a little bit this year. No, we got to figure out a way that we can spend that amount of money somewhere, somehow, some means. But the whole thing, and again, my position is not to argue the economics of it. My position is not to say, well, we should do this with our surplus or we should do that with a surplus, because I'm not a politician, I'm not an economist, I don't have a clue. I do have a clue about one thing, though. That we are always better off to know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And we in this country, from one end of it to the other, have created a culture of lies, a situation in which we punish the politicians who tell us the truth, and we reward the ones who tell us what we want to hear. Is anybody going to stand up and argue with that? I mean, we have gotten there, and we are in, I think, grave danger of paying for it in blood. Would you like you to turn back with me to Jeremiah, the 8th chapter? Because there was a time in history. At this point in time, God hasn't sent us any prophets yet. I would not be surprised to see a prophet or a prophetess turn up on the scene almost any day now. I don't know where they will come from, don't know what they'll look like, don't know what they'll say exactly, although I have a pretty good idea of what the message will be. Because God said, I am the Lord your God, I change not. He is the Father of lights, in whom is neither variableness nor shadow of turning. Jesus Christ is the same, yesterday, today, and forever. So when the prophet or the prophetess shows up, the message, I suspect, will be predictable. It will be very similar to the message that we encounter in Jeremiah. For in Jeremiah's day, the city of Jerusalem and Israel and Judah had become itself a culture of lies. In Jeremiah, the 8th chapter and verse 5, Why then is this people of Jerusalem slidden back by a perpetual backsliding? They hold fast deceit. They refuse to return. Now, it's one thing to try to lie your way out of a problem. I'll be the first one to confess. I've done that. In fact, when I was a kid, I did it a lot of times, right? Is there anybody here who would really want to deny that sometime in your past, and I don't know, let's put it well back there, Some of us are old enough we can really put it back there, that you lied your way out of trouble. The problem comes that when you're caught, you don't let it go. You hold on to the deceit, and you pursue the deceit, and you add to the deceit, and you put a deceit on top of the deceit that is already there. Trying to lie your way out of trouble is as normal as apple pie. But trying to continue to lie your way out of it once you've been cornered is a road to insanity. It's crazy. It'll make you crazy. It'll make the people around you crazy. It'll make, in our case, the public just a little bit crazy. I have never seen, I don't remember the last time, Vietnam maybe was the last time this country was as polarized as it is now. And at least it was there polarized over a war, not over the conduct of the president. And I'm not talking about the sexual conduct. I'm talking about the lies. I would be just as happy to condemn the sexual conduct as anything else, but everybody seems to want to keep putting private sexual conduct is not something we should pay attention to. I've got news for you, folks. When a man who cheats on his wife will cheat on you. Okay, if it was way back in the past, he's sorry for it, and his life has been exemplary since that time, that's fine. But that's not what we're talking about, is it? We're talking about a person who cheats on his wife again and again and again and again. A man who cheats on his wife is not to be trusted. A man who lies is not to be trusted. Well, one of the reasons why Israel was in trouble with their perpetual backsliding was because they held fast to deceit. They refused to return. I listened and I heard, but they did not speak right. No man repented himself of his wickedness, saying, "What have I done?" Everyone turned to his course, like the horse turns to the battle. Yea, the stork in the heaven knows her appointed time. She knows where to go, where to be, and when to be there. The swallow observes the time of their coming. But my people don't know. They don't know the judgment of the Lord. How do you say, "Well, we are wise, and the law of the Lord is with us"? Lo, certainly in vain made he it. The pen of the scribes is in vain. We got the law over here, and we don't need to listen to that. What these men wrote down doesn't mean anything to us. It's all just vanity. The wise men are ashamed. They are dismayed and taken. Lo, they have rejected the word of the Lord. What wisdom is in them? Now, that's an interesting statement. Look at all your wise men out here. But if they have rejected the word of God, they have no basis upon which their wisdom can even stand. That is such a simple truth, that unless there are somewhere some standards of right and wrong, some permanent, steadfast, steady light of what's right and what's wrong, we're lost. 30 years and better in this country, we have systematically been ruling that standard out of public life in this country. And that's why people will say it doesn't matter that the president had sex with a 21-year-old intern in his private study off the Oval Office. That's his private behavior. And when you try to bring a rational argument in it, you just get steamrollered. Because that's private. That's sex. We don't do that. It's not against the law. Sex is not against the law. And you just get rolled right over if you try to bring up that question. In my opinion, the president should be impeached for his abominable sexual conduct. He is a disgrace. But our law doesn't allow for that. So now we have to address the fact that he lied to us as a people. But since he wasn't under oath when he lied to us as a people, that's not a legal issue. We can't throw him out for that either. We have taken fast hold of deceit. And we pat the deceiver on his back and we say, "That's okay, buddy. You're doing a good job. We'll just leave you in office and let you finish out your term," even though we think your behavior is disgraceful and abominable and unconscionable and indefensible and all these things. We can string up a list of adjectives as long as from here to that wall about what's wrong with the president's behavior. But it's not an impeachable offense. What am I going to tell you, folks? That's where we as a people have come. It has to do not so much with the president. We have met the enemy And he's us. Therefore I will give their wives unto others, their fields to them that will inherit them. For everyone, from the least to the greatest, is given to covetousness. From the prophet even to the priest, everybody deals falsely. You can't trust anybody. Now, you understand this, I hope, that in that context, that historical context, is the prophet to the priest is the equivalent of saying from the preacher to the politician, from the preacher to the governor, from the preacher to the congressman. Everyone deals falsely. I just yearn for a politician who will come on television or get up in a speech and just tell the truth. And when he's answering a question, there's one of them up there that I know of that does this from time to time, and that's Senator Moynihan. You can ask him a question, he'll say yes or no. He's a man of few words. He seems to me to be an honorable man. There are a few others up there that my impression of them is that they are honorable men. But for the most part, the question that they ask before they go on television is, what will work? What strategy shall we follow today to influence the thinking and the opinion of the American people? Do you think that's right? Do you think that's the way to govern? Well, it's the only way we will let them govern, because of the way we as a people respond to the propagandists on all sides of all these issues. They don't want us to think. They don't want us to reason our way through these things. They want an emotional response on whichever side of the aisle it happens to be. And I think one of the most disgraceful things that's happened in Christianity in this entire country is that a great giant body of Christians in this country have allowed themselves to be branded the religious right. There's another bunch of them, who are the religious left over there, and they're happy being over on the religious left. But the truth is that all of us should take our Christian witness to wherever it should go. But the Christian witness ought to be based on the Scriptures. It ought to be based on the teachings of Jesus. It ought to be based on the teachings of God, the law of God, and the way of living. And sometimes that's going to agree with Republicans, and sometimes it's going to agree with Democrats. But if we decide, well, we're a part of the Republican Party or we're a part of the Democratic Party, well, we tend to sign on to party politics and abandon our witness. Our witness is the Bible, isn't it? Shouldn't it be? I certainly, for one, believe that Christians should engage the political system of this world. We should engage it with the words of Jesus. We should engage it with the words of Moses, with the law of God, with right, with wrong, with morality, and with truth. And we should punish the liars. And we should reward the people who will tell us the truth. But Christians have tossed themselves in amongst the masses. Oh yeah, they're right in there with the masses. How can I tell? Because they're responding to the things that are directed to the masses. And what's that? Whatever the political party wants you to feel at the moment. That's the way she goes. They have healed the hurt of the daughter of my people, slightly saying, peace, peace. There is no peace. Were they ashamed when they had committed abomination? No, they were not at all ashamed, neither could they blush. Therefore they shall fall among them that fall, and the time of their visitation they shall be cast down, saith the Lord. Were they ashamed? No, not only were they not ashamed, they couldn't even manage a blush. And when the time came for repentance, or when the time came when there had to be some sort of contrition, at this point in time it becomes a matter of strategy. It's not from the heart. If it were from the heart, there would be no strategy sessions. If it were from the heart, it would hurt. It would be painful. It would not be protecting of the self. Some little time ago there was a lot of conversation about forgiving somebody and how we could tell if a person has repented or not. Remember those days not that long ago, some of you? We were talking about a well-known evangelist and whether or not he repented. I want to tell you something. There is one incontrovertible rule with repentance. If a man is still justifying himself, he has not repented. If a man is still blaming others, and I use this in a pre-Ken Starr context, if a man is still blaming others, he has not repented. And this old idea, well, we can't judge other people, and we shouldn't sit in judgment of other people, is blind and stupid. If you don't have the eyesight and the wisdom to look at the fruits and to look at what a person is doing and look at what a person is saying and render a judgment as to whether he's telling the truth or not. Well, don't you remember Paul said, why are you people going to court? Why are you taking a brother to court among the unbelievers? Is there not one person among you who's competent to render judgment, to judge between brother and brother? We are supposed to be able to look people in the eye and judge whether they're telling the truth or not. We are supposed to evaluate what people have done and what people have said and make decisions between people about right and wrong. We are God's people. We have the law of God in our hearts and our minds. We have the Bible in our hands. We have the truth before us and a willingness to judge by the truth. And folks, we ought to judge. When those things are clear and staring us in the face, we ought to judge. And don't write me a letter and tell me, well, the Bible says judge not. I know that if I judge, I will be judged by the same standard I judge other people by. Right? That's fair. But I want to tell you something. If I don't judge, I'm still going to be judged by the standards of the Bible. So I have nothing to fear from judging by the standards of the Bible, do I? I'm going to get that anyway. And I am as inclined as anybody on the face of this earth to show mercy to a person who is brokenhearted and repentant and has turned his back on his sin. And you can tell. It's easy. It's easy. One way you can tell it's not is if he's blaming other people and justifying himself or herself, as the case may be. I feel that very strongly. I think that's a very important part of the things that we ought to know. In chapter 9 of Jeremiah, he says, Oh, that my head were waters and my eyes were a fountain of tears, that I might weep day and night for the slain of the daughter of my people. I wish I had a place in the wilderness, out in the desert, a lodging place of wayfaring men. I just wish I had a cabin out in the desert someplace so I could get away from these people and go from them. Because they are adulterers and they are an assembly of treacherous men. They just as soon stab you in the back as look at you. They bend their tongues like the bow for lies. And you pull your arrow out and you bend that bow. I mean, that's their tongue, and they'll lie a lot of them will lie, it seems, when the truth will serve better. They are not valiant for the truth. Folks, you know, there comes time when you have really got to be valorous. You've got to have courage, backbone, strength to tell the truth. Well, where are you going to go to find someone that's valiant for the truth? There are a few people out there who still seem to be trying. I noticed something interesting really recently that I had never really quite focused on. There is a range of journalists out there right now who are strongly involved in political commentary, who are extremely critical of President Clinton. They are, every one of them, Catholic. Most of them Irish Catholic. And they have been educated in the strict excellence of Catholic universities. And also they were educated by nuns and priests who taught them a strict set of morals that are, after all, in their origins based on the Bible. And it's really fascinating to watch this. How that they have been educated in many cases in Jesuit universities. They have that Jesuit manner of cutting through all the malarkey and going straight to the heart of a matter. And these are individuals who were taught by their mentors to tell the truth. This group of them wound up in journalism. Don't know what happened to the ones out of that group that wound up in politics. They bend their tongue like the bow for lies. They are not valiant for the truth upon the earth. They proceed from evil to evil, and they don't know me, says God. Take you heed, every one of his neighbor. Don't trust in any brother, for every brother will utterly supplant, and every neighbor will walk with slanders. Now, I want to tell you something, folks. We are coming to the place in this country to where people can stand up and seriously, with straight face on television, tell you that perjury in a civil case is not a big deal, that it doesn't matter, that nobody's ever been prosecuted for it. So that consequently now, if I were called to sit on a jury, and I have to sit on a jury in October this year, if I have to sit on that jury and they're trying somebody for perjury, it's going to be very difficult for me to convict, especially if it was perjury in a civil case about sex. Very hard for me to convict. In fact, I don't think they'll let me on the jury when I get through hearing what I have to say about it. But this is where we're coming to. That if it's not important to tell the truth, if it's not important for your congressman to tell the truth, if it's not important for the president to tell the truth, then it's not important for you to tell the truth. And we're going to come to the place to where you can't trust anyone. A signature on a document on a paper won't mean anything. You know, people used to do business in this country on their word and a handshake. If people gave you their word for something, you could take that to the bank. It was worth something. It's coming to the place where it's not anymore. You can't depend on people to do what they tell you they will do. They will lie, and then they will lie about their lies. I mean, it's in our society now from one end to the other. You show up at the airport planning to take an airplane from here to Los Angeles, and they'll tell you, well, your flight has been delayed, and we've had to move you to another flight. Then that flight's been canceled, and they move you to another flight. You know what they're doing? They're canceling flights because they're not full to fill up a later airplane. Will they tell you the truth? No, because they'd be in a lot of trouble if they did that. So they will lie to you. I don't know who tells the first lie, whether it's an executive out on the line that tells a lie, an executive upstairs that tells a lie and tells it to the clerk standing in front of me, who for all she knows is telling me the truth. But she tells me the corporate lie. Just like a lot of people in the White House in recent months have told us the corporate lie. Because truth doesn't matter. What matters is the end. What matters is what we're trying to get done. What matters is we're trying to get this project done and that project done. And this is the greatest president we've ever had, and we can't do without him. You know, one of the things that's really beginning to worry me about us as a people? If I watch the polls, I'm getting the idea that people seem to think that one man is more important than anybody else in this country. Do you have any idea how many thousands of men there are in this country who are capable of walking into the White House and picking up the reins and leading this country? There are not just a dozen, not just 100, not just 1,000, but thousands of capable men and women in this country who could run this country just fine. We elected one of them vice president. And I listen to this stuff as it goes back and forth, and I think, what do these people think they're doing? I saw a woman, I think it may have been Eleanor Smeal or one of the Now ladies the other day, was saying, well, what the Republicans are trying to do is they want to get rid of Clinton and Al Gore so that Newt Gingrich, that terrible Newt Gingrich, will be president. Oh, I'm not terribly enthusiastic about having Newt Gingrich as a president, but are those people such big fools that they don't realize that can't happen that way? You realize the only way that Newt Gingrich could be president, he is third in succession, would be if the president and the vice president were simultaneously killed. And there was not time in between to replace the vice president. If you've been around any time at all, you remember what happened when Spiro Agnew resigned. We went out and got a new vice president of the same party, right? And when Gerald Ford became president after Richard Nixon, I don't remember who was the vice president that was brought in under Gerald Ford, but there would have been one because we have to have one. So there was a vice president under Gerald Ford who was also a Republican. Why would someone lie to us like that? They're trying to scare us. What they're really trying to do, they're trying to scare this core Democratic base over here that's scared to death of the Republican. They want to keep them scared to death of the Republican Congress. Maybe they should be. I don't know. But at least, you know, if they're going to scare them, they really should scare them with the truth. Because that was a lie. It can't work that way. So you have to ask yourself, why do people do that? Is she that ignorant that she's doing that? I will tell you she is not. That was on the talking points. And so that was a part of what they had to get out on this occasion. This is really frightening to me because what this verse tells me is that once your leadership begins to head off down this road, that before long you will not be able to trust anyone. And there are times when I feel like we're getting there. Not long ago on a radio program, I cited the example of God going down to Sodom and Gomorrah, and if he could find 10 righteous people there, he wouldn't destroy the city. And I said, I think every one of us ought to get on our knees every day and thank God for the 10 righteous people that are keeping the rest of us alive. And I really believe that. I think that there are still some righteous people in this country. And that's one of the reasons why we are still surviving. But we are seeing this pattern develop all around us. They will deceive everyone his neighbor. They'll not speak the truth. They have taught their tongue to speak lies, and they weary themselves. They tire themselves out in order to commit iniquity. Sometimes it'd be easier not to do it, but they'll work at it. Your habitation is in the midst of deceit. Through deceit they refuse to know me, saith the Lord. They just don't want to know, and they will do whatever they have to. Therefore, thus saith the Lord of hosts, behold, I will melt them and try them. For how shall I do for the daughter of my people? What am I going to do for you? Their tongue is like an arrow shot out. It speaks deceit. One speaks peaceably to his neighbor with his mouth, but in his heart he lies in wait. Oh, yeah, give you the glad hand, the slap on the back, and peace to your face, but I got my dagger out, and if you turn your back, you're a dead man. Shall I not visit for these things, saith the Lord? And shall not my soul be avenged on a nation like this? Well, folks, we are a nation like this. And God says, do you think that I am not going to be avenged for this? I am afraid for our nation in ways that I have not been before. I'm not that afraid of Arabs with suitcase bombs. I am afraid of a leadership that no longer knows or cares what the truth is. That is frightening. A leadership that might get us into a war because they were afraid to tell us the truth about that war. A leadership that might get us into a war merely for political purposes that had nothing to do. But we as the people need to know the truth about whatever it is they're getting us into. I'm afraid for a nation where our leadership is no longer valiant for the truth. We've just been bashed by El Nino. Really had a bad drought last year. And for the first time in 105 years, we've got 4 Atlantic hurricanes going at the same time. It's like somebody stuck a mixmaster in the Atlantic. 4. First time in 105 years. And then yesterday, we had a 5.2 earthquake in northeastern Ohio. Californians will laugh at that. They think big deal. But it was got the attention of the people in Ohio, I can guarantee you. Now, this is no big deal. It's just a normal cycling of events, right? 105 years ago, we had 4 hurricanes in the Atlantic at the same time. So it's no big deal. This is the first time we've had it in a very long time. Just another earthquake along the way, right? But one of these days, it will not be just a normal cycle. One of these days, it will be the hand of God, and it won't go away. And it will show up in just the kind of patterns that we're beginning to see around our country. God says, you think I won't visit a nation like this? And what kind of visitation does God bring? Well, if you go back and read the prophets, you'll find it's earthquake. You'll find it's famine. You'll find it's terrible weather disasters. You'll also find, and this is one of the frightening things about it, that it is war. Turn back in conclusion to the first chapter of Isaiah, if you would. Isaiah chapter 1. Hear, O heavens, verse 2, give ear, O earth, for the Lord has spoken. I have nourished and brought up children, and they have rebelled against me. The ox knows his owner. The ass knows his master's crib. But Israel doesn't know. They don't even know their way home. They don't even think about it. Ah, sinful nation. A people loaded with iniquity. A seed of evildoers. Children that are corrupters, that have forsaken the Lord. They have provoked the Holy One of Israel into anger and have gone away backward. That's spooky all by itself. Do you realize you actually can provoke God to anger? What do you have to do? Why should you be stricken anymore? You will revolt more and more. The whole head is sick, and the whole heart is faint. From the sole of the foot even to the head there is no soundness in it, but wounds and bruises and putrefying sores. They have not been closed, neither bound up, neither mollified with ointment. It's the way this sort of thing is going to go. Your country is desolate. Your cities are burned with fire. Your land, strangers devoured in your presence, and it's desolate as overthrown by strangers. And the daughter of Zion, Jerusalem, sits out there like a lodge in a garden of cucumbers, like a besieged city. And in this, except the Lord of hosts had left us a very small remnant, we would have been like Sodom and like Gomorrah. You can spend all the time you like worrying about the year 2000 problem, the computers and all the stuff that they're going to do. But you might spend a little more time worrying about our truth-telling problem in this country. For they are not valiant for the truth anymore. Not here. Not now. It isn't our computers that's going to bring us down. It's our liars.